Hello, my name is Corey Thomas. I'm the CEO of Rapid7, a cybersecurity company. I'll talk to you in a little bit about what we as an organization do, but my topic for today is cybersecurity and the evolution of societal norms. Now, let me give you a little bit of background about how we actually got to this topic. At our company, we're deeply passionate about solving the overall cybersecurity problem. And of course, even though I went to HBS, I'm an engineer by training, and so I was assured that the problem and the solution was technology. And in fact, we spent many, many long years looking for a technology solution to cybersecurity. But we kept asking the why. We kept pulling back one layer at a time and trying to understand what was underneath. And more, we got the human behavioral factors. And we started off with some very simple human behavioral factors. This is like, of course, people are just dumb. They click too many links. My mom reminded me when I was fixing her computer that she was not an idiot. And so I left that sort of idea and that norm alone quite fast. But we wanted to understand the why. So what we attempt to do here is to take a whistle-stop tour about some of the things that we're at the early stage of discovering about how we actually operate as a society today and how that's affecting how we actually think about how we solve the problem long term. And so the first thing that we're going to come back to is why is a junkyard or a landfill full of appliances a cybersecurity problem? And I'm going to deposit that it is a cybersecurity problem. It's the same exact problem that we have in cybersecurity. So keep that in the back of your mind about why is that a cybersecurity problem. One of the things that we're going to look at as we go through, and again, this is a simplistic view, but when we think about our relationship to the things that we actually, to the underpinnings of society, and the things that we produce and how we spend time as a society, we're going to talk about some of the shifts that have actually happened over time. The first shift is we think about the agrarian age, there was not lots of building, there was lots of innovation. Yes, there were some over spells of time, but if you look in comparison to where we've been in the last 100 years, this was a relatively slow period of time of build and innovation and change. But what we were really good at is we spent a lot of human capacity on sustaining. We spent some on consuming, but there's only so much that people can actually eat, especially in that time frame. And so what you see here is the orange represents, and you may not be able to see it, is the amount of time we spent sustaining, in this case, the land in an agricultural setting. The light blue or gray represents consuming. And then the darker blue represents building or innovation or creating. And that's important, and that happened for a long time. We sparked in the industrial age, and what we had was we actually had a substantial increase in the amount that was actually people spent building and innovating. And so you had a lot more buildings, you had a lot more innovation, you had a lot more change. By the way, that change also increased consumption in a different type of way because people were actually consuming more goods, they were consuming more products, and so you see GDP and other things grow, but you also saw trade and other things sort of expand. But you had sustaining that was actually still there, but as you were building more things, you were still sustaining and maintaining those things even as you advanced forward through time. And there was some type of balance that was there. The peculiar thing that we actually have here as we actually go into the digital age is we've relatively exploded our capacity to build. There's more people that can actually build more companies, more technology than ever before. You can go out, you can build things, you can actually start things. It requires in a digital age much less capital, it's much less resource intensive than it ever was, but that's also caused an explosion in consumption. And you have to look no further than sort of like how people and how we spend our time. Here, we're even consuming sort of our phones. We're looking at data. We're looking at messaging. We're engaged. And this actually has relatively large implications because here we're talking about digital consumption. And we're spending a large percentage of our time not just building, but also consuming. The trouble that we actually have here, though, is that when you think about it, we're actually building and consuming at a much, much faster rate than we're sustaining and maintaining. And this is one of the foundational problems that we actually have in cybersecurity. Our desire, our passion, our nature around building, and the fact that we actually have demand for the things that we build, and people are consuming, and people want to spend more and more of their lives and more of their time on devices is that's all great, but it is coming at a cost in our attention. And what it's coming at the cost of is how much time we spend sustaining and maintaining. And in fact, you can actually see this in two things. Even as we have massive device proliferation, what this is the pace of innovation and the number of vulnerabilities that are introduced with the technology ecosystems that we actually produce. And you see it's steadily going up at time. I have another graph that shows you right as the number of vulnerabilities is actually going up, the number of devices is also increasing exponentially. Well, you take that together and you say, why do we have such a problem in society? Well, we have a problem in society because we're at this state and we're at this place where we are actually introducing technology that's highly vulnerable, not well maintained, not well managed, and that means it's highly exploitable. So when you actually pull back the layers of what's happening in our society all around us and why are companies compromised all the time, why are organizations breached, why is this happening nonstop, I would argue that it's relatively simplistic. We demanded it. We asked our companies, we asked our organizations to actually enable us with technology. We rewarded them when they enabled us with that technology, and we asked for it to happen at a faster and faster rate. And what we said is we really prioritize the pace of technology innovation, and frankly, we do not penalize companies that much who actually heavily invest in quality and the maintenance of their overall security ecosystem. This is a cultural phenomenon that we actually have here, is that we do have a society today that is heavily focused on how we sustain, not how we sustain, in how we actually consume and how we build, and very, very little focus is on how we sustain. Now, it's not that we don't complain about it. We actually complain about it, we're frustrated about it, but what we'd like to address is the symptoms. So what we'd like to say is a technology problem, so put some new piece of technology in my network, in my environment to make this problem go away. Well, there's no magical solution for the fact that we actually deploy technology at a faster rate than we can sustain it. That's not going to be solved with some magical other piece of technology that's actually going to make all the attacks go away. Now, I think technology, as we're going to talk about with our company, plays a role, but it's not the other role, not the only role. So now if we take a step back, is why is it that a landfill full of appliances is related to cybersecurity? How many of you, when your washing machine breaks, do you fix it? We have a couple hands. If you look a generation or two ago, the number of hands that would have went up would have been much, much higher. If I ask you sort of the number of people when your car actually goes awry, do you actually know how to fix it and do you have the capacity to fix it? The answers are drastically different today than they were in the past. That doesn't mean people don't do maintenance, they don't do other things, but we have actually evolved to a place where many, many more things are disposable. And that is a common factor that we actually see as we look at sort of how people actually treat their technology ecosystem. When we interview companies and when we interview organizations, we interview individuals about why they actually spend the time the way that they do, the large answer that we get back is that it's cheaper to replace it or build something else than to actually fix it and maintain it. And that's a good idea in practice, but it just doesn't actually happen. So when we think about sort of how we solve this problem and a constructive role that technology can play in this ecosystem, at Rapid7, our ambition is to deliver artificial intelligence technology that helps people sustain innovation. And the way that we actually see that is it's really applying artificial intelligence technology around data collection and automation to help people better maintain and sustain the environment, to do things like apply updates appropriately, understand the environment and apply configurations when they should happen, remediate issues as they occur in the environment. And it's both a data problem and an intelligence problem, but we think that this is an incredibly useful aid to actually adding technology and how technology can play a role in actually increasing the sustainability of the overall environment. If I have the privilege of having some of you join the session, I think some of the things that we'll explore and talk about is what's possible with technology, but what's also required in changes in human behavior, and whether some of those changes are even practical. Thank you very much for your time.